Alright, so I would like to read a fragment of Methods and Theories of Magic, a work that I wrote as an accompaniment to Occultosophiam, more practical book, and I will focus on what happens after death. Well, given my second sight and continuous interaction with many dead forms, I would like to posit certain axioms that may be uncertain, however proved to be successful over the years. I cannot see from the perspective of death. I may only intuit and interpret after what I've seen, what I established, and how I interacted with dead forms. Therefore, theories of magic, Nekrodous, the Black Voyage, theories of death and transmigration. Nature is an allegory of higher laws of the indivisible world. Divinity doesn't contradict nature. Porphyrius Malchus. Here, I would like to reveal some secrets of death and the soul's sojourns, journeys, and births into many worlds. I draw my knowledge from the strict observation of both the newly deceased, who came to me to find a solution to their problems, and the dead pitch-black souls and the etheric souls who stayed in the ethers. My means and method of observation were second sight, inclusive of seeing the dead forms, as well as interaction with them through gestures, black language, and incarnation, or mediumization. First of all, I would like to present my conception of life and death. It resembles the Orphic dictum, bios, thanatos, bios. There is a cycle of life and death, but from another perspective, this is merely a continuity of existential and ontological threads woven into the fabric of the world that transcends both concepts. Nothing really dies, nothing is really born, everything reappears in the great samsaric cycles. Apart from the bestiaries of the world, the realms of Thanatos can be divided into many realms, just as the Chthonic, Plutonic, and Black Demonic worlds can be divided into many other realms. To do justice to all the ethereal beings not mentioned here, I will focus solely on the human death, human transmigration, and simply exclude all other worlds involved in this process for the purpose of precision only. This human-centered perspective should not be considered the only right one. Interaction with animals, spirits, the dead, demons, elementals, angels, daimons, purified souls, heroes, demigods, and deities, and this model is solely referential, is a necessary ordeal to grasp most of the world that usually escaped human-centric perception. I would like to start with several principles so that it is easier to find your way in understanding later. Individual consciousness, existential mind, individuated genii or daimon are tentated from the indivisible world, which functions like a category in this indivisible world. Each functional soul, and there can be several of them, as mentioned in my lecture on Egyptian, Scandinavian, and Hellenic comparative pneumatology, is a result of the evolutionary transformation of the indivisible world on the scale of flashes of events in time. Its polyfunctionality obeys the laws of the registers of the world to which it is tuned in synthesis and syntony. Thus, the historicity of the souls is connected with their transformation, and the human souls have evolved from the animal souls in great transmigration and metempsychosis. For example, it was an ancient Thracian belief that the souls of Thracians come from animals, and it was quite correct. However, the human souls obey other laws due to their symbolic, self-reflexive cognitive apparatus that shapes the soul vis-a-vis the cognitive, affective, karmic, psychic, gymnosophic, magical operations that the human aggregates possess. That's why the Buddhists called the mortal body a wish-fulfilling jewel, because it had very complex occult propensities and possibilities to rectify many other components that humans nowadays very rarely use. The interfaces of contact with the world, the sensory, cognitive, affective, mental, pneumatic, and occult, psychopneumatic processes, psychosomatic, psychosexual, and physiological processes caused that the initial syntax of the emotional cognitive imprints of the alchemical magical transformations is different from that of animal souls and bodies, which are specialized in other types of dynamics coming from nature and pertaining to their nature. Animals possess souls, but they act according to their inner nature and their karman or telos, their inclinations, when they are transferred and translated into deep pneumatic realms. The laws are similar, but the dynamics are different. Let us remember that nothing is lost in nature. For example, people that are disfigured or intellectually inept, their output are very interesting spirits. As an example, let me repeat the Enki Ninma ethos. The laws of the physical objective universe are a category of the laws of the indivisible universe. To create a theory of everything on the basis of these laws is beyond the possibility of its categories. In other words, only the intelligible world is intelligible totally and fully understood through itself. Deep and occult laws operate in the universe of which the philosophers undreamt of. Both the physical and the ethereal worlds obey these laws. To discover and ferret out these laws in order to attain wisdom and truth is the task of the philosopher-magician. To implement them within is the task of the hermeticist. To act upon them in passive and active modus operandi is the task of the hippophet and magoi. There is a life after death that corresponds to the indivisible whole, and the question of the fates of human beings offers many answers that depend on the following. Sporulated form, that is, which soul parts remain on the other side. After death, which synthesize and syntonize, which decay. How does the individuation take place? Because even great, strong souls, ka of gods, are not immortal. They last for millennia and yet are subject to changes like everything in this world. Biopsychological imprints, the gene machine, socialization in nature, society, civilizations amongst humans, religions, the value system, taboos, the sacred and the profane, beliefs, the foundations of the mind, the karman, the oneirocracy, or to put it holistically, the whole psychophysio-magical homunculus, which arises with death, and disposing of the carcass, or the organic carcass retains some memories of the living organism, hence some necromants engage in profanating the cadavers, as mentioned, so some necromancers and unethical grave robbers indulge in this sport, which brings more trouble with the shadows, eidola, simulacra, and the dead souls, erinis, than benefit. Pitching of the mind, intellect, living soul, heart, kepers, symbolized in chemetism by a toiling scarab, when undergoing off-height operations with the ka, a winged soul heart, to frequencies, registrations, or channels of a particular world. Examples listed at the very end of this chapter. The consolidation of the souls of a single mortal into proportional wholes, their harmonic intervals, their separation, distinction, union, and fusion, that is, a part of the spiritual apparatus of a mortal can be translated, interpreted, or born into another place than another functional soul of a human being. As an example, a shadow, dead soul, black soul, kaibit, can reside in the land of death and possess the land of the living, places, houses, churches, while the bionic soul is reborn in an animal and the spirit takes the garb of the agathos daimon of the Hadesian ether or sublunar. The ability to synchronize all components in unison is a rare trait, but should be achieved while still alive. Note that some components are underdeveloped in some people or never developed, the wish-fulfilling jewel underdeveloped, but a sense of elitism should be totally discarded, since every mortal being has the potential to develop different functional souls at her own pace, if properly guided by diverse occult operations. In this way, we avoid a caste system and erred determinism, although casteless societies usually procure classless people. Never mind. Often souls do not choose the place of birth, but are drawn into the womb of many worlds and bios. So, for example, a mother. Often they are forced into a womb. The paradigm of so-called lesson on earth, as New Agers believe, is false. The game is much more profound and merciless for those who are left behind. The totality of the tendencies on earth and at the time of death, as well as the posthumous changes, karman, or teleology, telos. It is difficult to change the karman after our death, so it is of great importance that we work to surpass and shape our genii while we are alive. For a list of other important variables that influence our fates, check this. The totality of our ethos or character or nature in life. What do we have as our daimon or genii? For example, Sosipatra had the daimon of a goddess, so did Plotinus. I have a daimon of a dragon, for example, just like Aesculap, although he was a healer. Hidden threads of destiny, seals on our souls that posthumously strengthen or weaken associations with certain worlds. Attachments that embody the subject of our attachment in posthumous inclinations and associated illusory worlds. So, as being heavily addicted to nicotine and cigarettes, I am taking that to the other side. Protection, evaluation, endorsement, praise or recognition by deities that can help us navigate the netherworlds and protect us from malevolent worlds, as well as bring us back, liberate us to their worlds, overcoming and breaking sigils of cacodemonic entities, furthering psychopomps, the guides of souls, like Palinchikus in Sicily, traveling in between the chthonic underworld and the upper regions, can facilitate the posthumous journey. Posthumous recognition of signs, names, sigils that help us navigate, make us recognize, chain us to certain worlds, or free us towards them. They can also be recovered in life to regressively identify us with earlier living persons and continue our work in the current life. Posthumous assignment or strong destinies that lead us into a particular sphere, world, for example, being cast into a particular planetary sphere to work as an intelligence spirit of that planetary sphere. In my case, I was designated in 2007 to the planetary sphere of Saturn Additum Cronion, thus I was prepared throughout my life to carry on with my duties posthumously. The ability to navigate worlds is an impersonal, detached and objective way so that none trap us with their illusory reality on the other side. Otherwise we embody the subject of perception as true and deflate it into a true world. So if a dead soul is in the forest of the dead, it believes in its woe and suffering. That's the only reality there. The ability to find one's home, the posthumous telos, reality or place where we want to be, and that is the purpose. Individual soteriology, or the ability to achieve a posthumous state of necessity and will after a series of successful initiations, spiritual, magical, sacraments and ceremonial acts. Sacrament in Hellenic meant that the gods, goddesses, the maestras are laying a seal on your mind, intellect, soul and spirit to seal it with some mysteries and initiations. The law of the interlocked kaleidoscope, or the ability to create keys, claves, in the soul and daimon that open the gates of certain worlds and increase the possibility of being reborn in those worlds. We don't have to be reborn in bios or as an animal or a human animal all the time. We may be reborn into myriads of other worlds that are ethereal, spiritual. The worlds we can be born into can each contain a myriad of millions of entities that are assembled in depth into complex geometric figures that undergo entropic transformations. This is an example that I try to conjure to explain it. So when I walk through the old city of Warsaw, I may see dead, standing, walking, some servitor bats of local coteries, large shadow demons, and so on and so on. But when I close my eyes and pierce into those situations, there is the Thanatos green, this dimension of dark green flame. So there is the depth projection of necrovision with closed eyes, plenty of corpses, cadavers, but If you go even further, there are vortexes, there are highly complex geometries in the green Thanatos, and then the photic regression of Necrovision, it becomes even more complex, the palaces of dimensions. This is the cathedral of death. And depth field dimensional geometry even further, we enter highly complex geometries. That's why one philosopher, Plato, said that the divine tends to geometrize highly complex geometries. Now, all worlds are parallel. They are not mutually exclusive. They can be in a different registration or category of an indivisible world. And since they are in different pockets of entropy, they can be invisible to each other. Some worlds do not see others, and vice versa. The more you see, like a kernel is a form of when your mind is portalized to many dimensions and you see more than you should probably. Okay. Life is the only moment of reality. Austin Osman Spare. Why? Most of the chaos of the other worlds opens only posthumously and reminds of a flowing dream until one meets some stability. And life is very stable because not many things change, the matter, and so on. Whomsoever masters this dream is like an immortal. The more subtle a world is, the less it has to do with ours, the greater the influence it has on all the others. So there are worlds parallel to the physical one, but subtle, and there are worlds that have nothing to do with the physical world. From the point of view of the beings in each of these worlds, their own world is as real as it is to a mortal man who dreams a realistic dream without being aware that he is dreaming. So, some examples of worlds into which you may be born posthumously. This is just a list generated by artificial intelligence after I fed some stuff into it. Nevertheless, world of bios, variables, maybe an elephant, dolphin, chimpanzee. World of logos, noumena, one of the highest worlds. World of generation, phenomena, worlds of chaos, potential tiamatic forms, the underworld, the great chaos. The elements, you may be the element of fire, for example, a Vulcan, a salamander, or like God and Sylphan, the spirits of air. You may be born in planetary spheres, from Mercury to, well, I wouldn't go into Neptune because a weird langusta and fruity timarigo crawls over me. I don't go into those thresholds. But, for example, the sphere of Saturn. And of course, it's a gaseous planet, Saturn. But it has palaces and plenty of invisible dimensions, from lead to gold, just like any other planetary sphere. Moons and stars, or the magnificent archpriestess of the moon. The physical moon is just a rock, right? The technosphere, the preservation and translation of the soul into weird electronica, radio waves, microwaves, infrared. Worlds of intelligence, spirits, elementals, daimons, heroes, demigods, levels of consciousness as understanding, Hindi understanding, Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti, Turiya, Turiyatita. Worlds of Thanatos, the one that we mentioned right here, shades, dead forms, dead souls, Bardotodol, graveyard of forms. Nekrodous, the traveling through death, dead realms, charnel grounds, purgatory, limbo, Hades, Tartarus, Styx. Styx is messy. Elysium, heaven, pure lands. Dense worlds, Typhonian worlds, Styx. Light worlds, etheric, subtle. That's just references. It's only a model. All models are wrong, but they're useful. Gamma, X-ray, ultraviolet. That's the physical aspect of it. Gamma bursts. And so on and so on. Proportions in which the soul is in concordance, monochord, minor, third, septimal, tritium, the entropy, Shannon entropy, Gibbs entropy, von Neumann entropy, topological entropy, and spaces. That is all important. You can recombine it. I like to combine science with magic. Topological spaces, the mouth, non-Euclidean spaces, metric spaces, Banach space, Hilbert space, epochs, Hadean, Archean, ta-da-da. Some may travel to time, as the dead are usually liberated from some limitations of the perception of time of the living. Overworlds, hyperionic worlds, suprastellar worlds, the worlds of divine fire, Yaru, underworlds, Azot, Tartarus, Schwarze Sonne, cosmic hells, chaos. So, what is usually hell? It is a place of subjective suffering when a sentient soul is cast or reborn into an unnatural state tormented by pain, terror, delusion, suffering, attachment, unmet needs of life. Likewise, so-called bliss. Heaven is the subjective experience of bliss, eudaimonia, which appears pleasant. Both states are a form of chains. One is the iron chain, the other one is the golden chain. A liberated person transcends both states and can travel through all the realms as he pleases, like having an astral passport, without being trapped in any of them. The shedding of attachments and the ability to travel through the world without embodying the subjects of these illusory states is a goal, but very difficult. What does it mean to shed attachments? Does it mean to stop caring about things? No, it means that I may want to drink this coffee, but I no longer need it. Thank you.